On October 2, 1948, the National Security Council granted the CIA almost complete autonomy in dealing with the Cold War. They were suddenly authorized to do pretty much anything they wanted to do, and do it in such a way that even the rest of the federal government would never know about it. They structured their operations so that if they were exposed, the federal government could reasonably claim that they had nothing to do with it and knew nothing about it. One such operation is what we call today the Bay of Pigs invasion. Planning took place throughout 1959, and President Eisenhower reluctantly gave his approval on November 29. When JFK moved into the White House, the CIA tried to control the new president's Cold War policies and strategies. When that failed, the CIA simply went about conducting its own foreign policy, with or without the chief executive's approval. JFK was briefed on the Bay of Pigs mission, along with Dean Rusk, Secretary of State, and Robert McNamara, Secretary of Defense. But they were almost certainly not given all the relevant information. Nor were the Cuban exiles who would carry out the mission. The operation was plagued with problems from the beginning. Cuban exiles being trained in Guatemala were fewer than the CIA had planned for. The trainees were not happy about the lack of information they were given about what was going on in Cuba and what kind of future was planned for the island. JFK's view of Cuba was this, spoken to French journalist Jean Daniel.
I believe that there is no country in the world, including the African regions, including any and all of the countries under colonial domination, where economic colonization, humiliation, and exploitation were worse than in Cuba, in part owing to my country's policies during the Batista regime. I believe that we created, built, and manufactured the Castro movement out of whole cloth and without realizing it. I believe that the accumulation of these mistakes has jeopardized all of Latin America. The great aim of the Alliance for Progress is to reverse this unfortunate policy. This is one of the most, if not the most, important problems in American foreign policy. I can assure you that I have understood the Cubans.
On early April 17, 1961, the operation began. Cuban air forces prevented American air support and new supplies. The exiles were pinned down on the beach and out of ammo. Ground forces easily blunted the invasion, killing 200 and taking over 1,000 prisoners. It was all over in 2 days. At first, JFK was blamed for not providing air support in time. We now know that Russians had learned about the invasion in advance. The CIA knew this, but they did not tell JFK. Charles Bartlett also found out about it, and he gave the information to CIA Director Allen Dulles. He said he'd look into it and get back to him. By the time Dulles called Bartlett back, the invasion was already underway. An internal CIA investigation was revealed later, concluding that the operation was bungled from the beginning. Agents had failed to accurately assess Castro's capabilities. The best people were not assigned to the mission, and many of the people who were assigned were not used to full advantage. They did not provide adequate resources, including boats, training facilities, and people who spoke Spanish. JFK was left with even greater strain on U.S.-Cuba relations. It also destroyed any possibility of an effective working relationship between JFK and the CIA. Kennedy saw the CIA as extremely dangerous warmongers. The CIA saw JFK as weak and indecisive. Kennedy had only pretended to comply with the CIA's agenda during the 1960 campaign. Many in the CIA had hoped for a Nixon victory because he could be counted on to go along with whatever the CIA planned. Kennedy fired Charles Cabell, CIA Deputy Director General, Richard Bissell Jr., CIA Deputy Director, and Allen Dulles. It is still not clear whether Dulles was hoping to start a war, humiliate the president, or maybe both. JFK also threatened to destroy the CIA. He said he wanted to shatter it into 1,000 pieces and scatter it to the wind. He trimmed the CIA budget in 1962 and 1963, planning to reduce the agency by 20% by the middle of his second term. The fledgling president was at war with his CIA, and he was not on good terms with military advisors either. This created a very dangerous atmosphere that ultimately cost JFK his life and allowed LBJ to slither into the White House. But, before we get to that, in the midst of this explosive situation, JFK was forced to focus his full attention on the Soviet Union and forge an unlikely secret alliance with Nikita Khrushchev. Operation 40, designed to take control of Cuba, was the work of CIA Director Allen Dulles. Vice President Richard Nixon was in charge of it. It was an assassination squad. These agents thought of JFK as a coward for not providing air support for the Bay of Pigs invasion, sparking their intense hatred for Kennedy. CIA agent Bill Harvey was assigned as case manager for Mafia principal Johnny Rosselli. Harvey had presided over a Castro assassination plot named ZR Rifle, and that led to his association with Operation 40. Harvey developed a reputation as the CIA's real-life version of the fictional agent 007, probably because the spy knew how to get things done quietly. JFK, a 007 fan, was eager to meet this agent, but when he did he was underwhelmed to say the least. Harvey looked nothing like the screen version of 007. Bill Harvey was a pot-bellied, bug-eyed, due to a thyroid condition, disheveled disappointment to Kennedy. The feeling was mutual. Harvey discreetly referred to Bobby as that fucker. Despite appearances, Harvey was just the right guy for the CIA-Mafia relationship. Harvey ignored orders to end Operation 40 because he felt he had authorization to continue based on NSC 10-2. He sent troops to Cuba for a possible invasion during the Cuban Missile Crisis, and hardly anyone in the federal government knew about it. Bobby Kennedy sent Harvey to Rome and ordered him to stop all contact with the Florida Castro operation, but Harvey continued to go to Florida to meet with Johnny Rosselli, who had been ordered to be fired from all CIA association. The two men also met secretly with CIA agents David Atlee Phillips and David Morales. On April 18 and 19, Harvey and Rosselli went to Plantation Key in a chartered boat because it was beyond any surveillance. Operation 40, with its mafia associations, went on to play a prominent and essential role in the JFK murder. LBJ relied on their expertise because his style of assassination was not nearly sophisticated enough for this plot. The CIA and Mafia would be dependent on LBJ to control key elements, such as the location of the hit, suppression of evidence after the murder, and many other functions essential to the hit and the cover-up. E. Howard Hunt, CIA operative for Operation 40, and later a key figure in the Watergate scandal, recognized LBJ as an opportunist who would stop at nothing to achieve his goals. He also recognized the CIA as an organization with the extraordinary ability to compartmentalize. They could carry out a mission, walk away, and never look back. There is evidence that Hunt was in Dallas on November 22, 1963, and that he had paid the assassination team the night before. According to Hunt, there was another CIA official who played a prominent role in Operation 40, Cord Meyer. His ex-wife Mary had become one of JFK's many mistresses. JFK told his close aide Kenny O'Donnell that he, Kennedy, was so in love with Mary that he planned to eventually divorce Jackie and spend the rest of his life with Mary. Cord Meyer was devastated. Mary was killed by an unidentified assassin a year after the JFK murder. There was another related, mysterious death. Leo D'Amour, journalist and author, was writing a book about JFK's affair with Mary Meyer before he suddenly died of a purported self-inflicted gunshot wound in 1995. An aging Cord Meyer told an author that the same people who killed his wife killed JFK. LBJ had strong ties to Texas oil. One such oilman was Clint Murchison, who owned the Del Mar racetrack and the Hotel Del Charro in La Jolla, California. That resort was frequented by CIA, FBI, and Mafia principals, including Carlos Marcello and Jack Ruby. That is how LBJ secured the help of the Project 40 assassins in the JFK murder plot. They were professional assassins, and they wanted to see JFK go away. That group by then had itself disappeared. It was such a secret organization that even CIA Director John McCone, who replaced Allen Dulles when Dulles was fired by JFK because of the Bay of Pigs disaster, didn't know they were still around. Murchison played host to key people in the CIA, Mafia, and FBI, as well as VP Johnson on the eve of the Dallas hit. One of the guests was George H. W. Bush. H. L. Hunt brought in David Morales, a CIA hitman. Morales was perfect for the job because he hated the Kennedys and because he could be relied on to do as he was told. According to Morales' attorney, Robert Walton, Morales had told him,
"I was in Dallas when we got that motherfucker and I was in Los Angeles when we got the little bastard.